Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Rage video, where tonight, ladies and gentlemen, well, okay, so listen, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Because of YouTube's, policies for the last year and a half, you see this word up here? You see this word I'm highlighting? YouTube really does not like people who ever say that word. So basically, the issue is that if I say that particular word, that means that it will be very difficult for people to actually see this video. So the problem is that it might not show up on people's tabs or anything like that. It might not be, it might not show up when trying to get new people to see this. However, because again, it's one of those things where it's very, very touchy, and it's a very difficult one to say, because to be honest, I know exactly what I want to say, so I'm just going to say it. We are checking out Screaming Suicide by Metallica, and let me just make something really, really plain and clear right now, ladies and gentlemen. If just because I want to be as fair as possible, I will leave links to health organizations if there are people who are struggling with life and wanted to seek help and guidance. All of those will be listed down below, so you guys know that I'm absolutely playing fair, because it's not even up for discussion about trying to, say what I don't really, about things besides very sensitive subjects. But I will say this: I do think it's pretty scummy of YouTube to suddenly try and, almost demonize it by, restricting people from using that particular word. It's not because I do understand why YouTube would be very reticent about it, but I also don't understand the reason or the rationale behind, well, why would you, what do you think people are going to say about it? It's a very delicate issue. It's something that actually affects far more people than we care to think. Yes, of course, we want to reach out to them, but how can we even think about reaching out to people if you're restricting people from just using that particular word? That's the issue. Yeah, it's if YouTube is going to play this, play the ball card with this sort of thing, then don't restrict. If you want to actually reach out to people who are struggling with this, you don't start by saying you can't use that word. It's not a swear word. It's not racist or xenophobic or anything like that. It is what it is, and don't go around saying it is. Don't call a rake a multi-pronged handgun is what I'm talking about. You call a spade a shovel, and that's it. You don't try and screw around and say something that it isn't, or pretend that if we want to actually address it, then we've got to actually address it. I think that is pretty much how I just always wanted to put it, because I don't understand the reason why we just can't actually talk about it. In fact, it's not even talking about it. It's just using the word at all is too much of a red flag when it comes to YouTube, which must be really difficult for some bands to even get their music out there if they can't even call it a particular word. That's whatever. I'm done. That rant's over. So, again, if you're with us, one of the things you might be catching on when it comes to 72 Seasons is that every song so far has got a music video attached to it, which means that Screaming Suicide is going to be yet another example. So I cannot wait. So if you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, links will all be in the description down below. So let's begin. Screaming Suicide in 3, now. so that's, I must admit, Metallica. I'm going to be completely honest with you. That's a really bold thing to do. Is that for a song that talks about this sort of subject matter? It's very, very interesting. I want to say that they want to make it as upbeat and as catchy, which it's not. It's not as if you can't do that, but it's a very, I don't know. I don't know if people find that sort of thing a bit conflicting, but I'm also a little bit about, like, what's the rationale behind it. So we'll cut to that. We'll cut back to that in a bit. So okay, here we go.
Another day, spirit locked away, on a shitty drive. Hate to be awake, living a mistake, more dead than alive. Then a voice appears, whispering in your ears, you were good enough. Going down a rope, a lifeline of hope, never give you up. Listen well, better listen well. Listen well, better listen well. Don't ever speak my name. Remember you're to blame. Keep me inside. My name is suicide. Terrified in sleepless nights, caught in spotlight, dead to rights. Isolate and fight your mind, telling you you're left behind. My lying voice inside keeps drinking cyanide, and no more can you run into the sun. Terrified, sleepless nights, caught in spotlight, dead to rights. Isolate and fight your mind, telling you you're left behind. And now you speak my name. You've given back the flame. Don't you keep me inside, screaming suicide. Now that I'm exposed inside, shine the light on cyanide. I'm no longer needed here. Now you face your biggest fear.
Sakinti. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's like, I'm actually glad, actually, because to be honest, when it all comes together, it actually absolutely makes sense. Because I talked before about how if because almost the word suicide has become borderline taboo. Well, certainly on YouTube, it seems to become borderline taboo. But at the same time, what's remarkable about the whole thing is you remember is that you could argue it being so upbeat is like a front that some people do put on, because that you could almost anticipate. Well, it would be hard to anticipate whether or not the happiest, the brightest, bubbliest, outgoing person in the world, inside they may be dreading every single moment of it to the point of agony. So you could easily make the case, because again, because it's even shot in black and white, is that the irony is that it's not a black and white issue as well, because it takes multiple forms, different shades, and you do legitimately wonder if it is nearly as simple as it is. And the problem is that when, in the case of YouTube, you try and make it a black and white issue, you run the risk of alienating a lot of people who actually might need help, and those who ever thought about the idea of suicide creeping into people's minds. It's the sort of thing that you shouldn't be afraid to talk about. I mean, there are loads of things out there that people would be openly afraid and scared to admit. But if you don't actually treat or see help about these sorts of things, then these things multiply and get worse and worse and worse. And think about how it ends as well. Bear this in mind. Now that I'm exposed inside, shine a light on cyanide, I'm no longer needed here. Now you've faced your biggest fear. You could literally interpret that in one or two ways, and it wouldn't be any surprise whatsoever which one you would go with. But then again, remember, it could be one of the two. And bear in mind that, ladies and gentlemen, this is like a really big thing. What's the year now? 2004. Back in, I want to remind you of a very similar song that Metallica did in 1984, 40 years previous, a little song called Fade to Black, which is possibly the greatest Metallica song they have ever done. You know how that song goes? You know how melancholy it begins? You know how despairing the lyrics are? And then in the final 2 minutes, it becomes really upbeat and it almost becomes victorious. Well, that's also a song that you can also interpret one way or the other. And is it not right and just to say that Screaming Suicide does the exact same thing? Well, again, it's a subjective opinion. It's not necessarily it's not up to me to say whether it is one or the other. But what I will say is that actually, it's nowhere near as black and white, as taboo as people think it is. And it's something that we should never be afraid to talk about, to be open with, because, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, who's to say this time next year things would be different? Or who's to say that somebody we might know, that sort of thing may happen? Because, like I said, you can't really anticipate what people are thinking about, or what might think about, or how bad things can be for some people. And when things become bad and life becomes hard for some people, the last thing you want to do is tell them that they can't talk about it. That's the very last thing you do. Stay safe, everyone. And I will leave links to organizations if there's anything anybody wants to talk about down below, because it probably might have to go to someone a bit more professional than me to deal with it. So hopefully it will be something to make things just a little bit easier. That sort of thing. So anyway, I hope all of you guys have enjoyed this reaction video to Screaming Suicide by Metallica. Please make sure to leave all your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below, because we want to know what you guys felt of Screaming Suicide for yourselves. And I cannot wait to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.